set to start on Monday in Brazil, the European Union just negotiated new climate goals. These new targets are somewhat watered down from previous targets. Deutsche Welle correspondent Mathis Richtmann joins us now from Berlin. Mathis, g'day. So why was it so important for the Europeans to come together on these climate targets ahead of the climate summit in Brazil?
Well, the European Union is widely seen as sort of a forerunner on climate policy, or at least that's an image politicians here try to uphold. And at next week's COP conference, participating countries are asked to present plans on how they expect to cut emissions until 2035. So there was some urgency to have a plan ready for that if the Europeans still want to be taken seriously on the matter. The EU's new compromise suggests to cut emissions in the next 10 years between about 66% and about 72%. But that was just what was needed to present in Belém in Brazil next week. The bigger picture seen from here is that there is a new compromise on climate targets for 2040. That's sort of the time span used for climate goals here in general. And here, the original goal was to cut CO2 emissions by 90% until 2040, if compared to levels from 1990. And while that target technically still holds, it's now pierced with exceptions. Foremost, EU member countries now still comply with that rule if they buy so-called offset certificates from elsewhere. So that would mean, for example, that Germany still complies with this target if heavy polluting companies buy carbon credits elsewhere, say by investing in a forestation project in another country, like it currently already happens, for example, in Costa Rica. Critics argue that that outsources some of the burden to cut emissions and that further exceptions to the rules water down the ambitions to reduce emissions in rich countries here in Europe.
And so that sounds like the EU is backing away from its former front-runner position on climate ambitions. What's led to this?
I think there are at least two factors at play that need to be taken into consideration. First, climate policy globally is seeing a retreat. That comes as climate-induced natural disasters are picking up globally, for example, with heavy flooding in Spain last year. At the same time, there is a more hostile economic environment globally that seems to have led to a more business-first attitude here in Europe as well that dampens climate priorities. That combines with countries like France and Italy being stretched in their budgets and a surge in populist right-wing parties that generally lowers priorities on climate policy. And that already leads to the second factor, the sort of division of leadership within the European Union. While there's historically a little bit more ambition on climate goals in Germany, other countries here tend to set their priorities differently. Given that division, some observers actually look at this new consensus, even though it's watered down, as a big win because a highly divided 27-member state European Union was able to get together and find at least some common ground.
Okay, Mathis Richtmann reporting there from Berlin.